put your tour in a better context, I'll briefly review the political history of the Korean Peninsula. Prior to World War II, the Japanese had colonized the Korean Peninsula. In the final days of World War II, the Soviet Union accepted the surrender of the Japanese north of the 38th parallel, while the United States accepted the surrender of the Japanese to the south. The 38th parallel was not meant to be a political boundary nor a division of country. It was merely established to designate areas of responsibility. So in May of 1948, the elections were held in the south, and this man, Dr. Sungman Lee, was elected first president of the Republic of Korea. In September of that same year, the Soviet Union appointed Kim Il-sung to be the first premier over communist North Korea. He reigned for approximately 46 years until his death in July of 1994. His eldest son, Kim Jong-il, then succeeded him in power. This marked the first ever father-son succession of power to take place in a communist country, and he ruled for approximately 17 years until his death in December of 2011. His youngest son, Kim Jong-un, then succeeded him in power. This was the second father-son succession of power to take place in a communist country, and marks the third generation of the Kim family to rule over communist North Korea. Despite attempts to reunify and negotiations, on the 25th of June 1950, North Korea launched a massive surprise attack. The ensuing war would last over 3 years and cost over 2 million people their lives. During the first month of the attack, North Korean forces captured most of the Korean Peninsula. Coalition forces were finally able to stop the North Korean army's advance near the city of Busan. Over the next 4 months, the United Nations Command performed the Incheon landing, pushing North Korean forces back to the Yellow River, the border between China and North Korea. China then entered the war and aided the North Korean war effort. The war began to stabilize around 38th parallel. However, permanent settlement has yet been reached. On the 27th of July 1953, commanders from the United Nations, the Chinese People's Volunteers, and the Korean People's Army signed an armistice or a ceasefire agreement to end all the fighting. The border between North and South Korea has remained relatively the same ever since. The white dotted line represents the Military Demarcation Line, or MDL. Under the provisions of the armistice, military commanders were ordered to pull their troops back 2 kilometers from the last point of hostile contact, thus creating a 4-kilometer wide, 241-kilometer long demilitarized zone, or DMZ. Note the location of Seoul and its relationship to the MDL. Here at Camp Boniface, we are currently located just 400 meters from the southern boundary of the demilitarized zone and 2.4 kilometers from the MDL. This is Kaesong, the site where the original signing of the armistice took place until being moved to Panmunjom, or what we now call the Joint Security Area. Although DMZ itself has become one of the most militarized locations known throughout the world, the MDL has no military fortifications. It merely consists of 1,292 yellow and black panel markers that run from coast to coast and that are spaced at 1 to 200 meter intervals. On the southern side, they live in Hangul, or Korean at the top, and English at the bottom. And on the northern side, they live in Hangul, or Korean at the top, and Chinese at the bottom. Within the Joint Security Area itself, the MDL is more clearly defined by these white stakes that stand 1 meter in height, spaced at 10 meter intervals. It extends through Conference Row, bisecting each building with a 17 by 5 inch concrete slab. This is the area we will be visiting today. Notice how the MDL winds its way through the middle of the DMZ and forms a finger inside the Joint Security Area. Upon arriving to Checkpoint 3, we will be surrounded on 3 sides by communist North Korea. You start your tour here at Camp Boniface and exit onto the MSR, or Main Supply Route, also known as Old Highway 1. For 50 years, this has been the only route that connected North and South Korea until an agreement was made to open the East and West transportation corridors. However, this is still the only route that leads to the Joint Security Area itself. On our trip north, I'll point out Guard Post 240, Observation Post Olet, Taesongdong, or Freedom Village, Gijongdong, or Propaganda Village, the Swiss and Swedish Neutral Nation Supervisory Commissions Camp, and the former Czech and Polish NNSC. I'll now highlight a few of the areas we will be visiting today, or seeing today. First, the village of Taesongdong, or Freedom Village. The United Nations Command Security Battalion is responsible for carrying out the civil affairs as well as providing security for this unique village. We provide security through a security company that works 24 hours a day. During the day, they provide security while the farmers work in the fields, and at night, they provide security for the village itself while the residents sleep. The residents here own modern and large homes. However, they must be inside their village by nightfall and inside their homes with the doors and windows locked and secured by midnight. 1,800 meters across the MDL from Taesongdong Village is Gijongdong, or Propaganda Village. It obtained its name due to the extremely large sound speaker system located throughout the area that broadcasted propaganda 6 to 12 hours a day that could be heard here, but mostly at night, until June of 2004. This propaganda idolized their leader, Kim Sung-il, to be a great leader and invited the residents of Taesongdong, as well as the rest of the Republic of Korea, to defect to the so-called Village of Paradise. However, if one were to defect here, they would find themselves rather lonely, for this village is mostly uninhabited. We do see people here from time to time who upkeep and maintain the buildings, as well as raise and lower this extremely large North Korean flag. It is one of the world's largest flags, an approximate length of 31 meters and an approximate width of 17 meters. This is the second of 2 flagpoles to have stood in the village of Gijongdong. In 1981, the Republic of Korea donated a flag and flagpole to stand in the village of Taesongdong that stood 2 meters taller than the original flagpole in Gijongdong. So North Korea quickly responded by building an even taller. The flagpole in Taesongdong stands approximately 100 meters in height, while the flagpole in Gijongdong stands approximately 160 meters in height. On our trip north today, I'll point out the new Tranation Supervisor Commissions Camp. It originally consisted of 4 delegates, which is the Swiss, the Swedish, the Czechoslovakian, and the Polish. They were charged with all armistice violations, investigations outside of the demilitarized zone. We currently work with 3 delegates, which is the Swiss and Swedish that stay year-round, and the Polish that come for biannual meetings. From Checkpoint 3, I will point out the former Czech and Polish NNSC camp, which is seen here on your right, as well as the old Panmunjom building, which is North Korea's People's Peace Museum, which is built in under 48 hours solely for the purpose of signing of the armistice agreement. Also visible from Checkpoint 3 is the Bridge of No Return, which obtained its name near the end of the Korean War when we formed Operation Big Switch and Operation Little Switch, in which the United Nations Command returned approximately 82,000 prisoners of war, and North Korea and the Chinese returned approximately 13,000 prisoners of war. These prisoners of war were set up on each side of the bridge and given the opportunity to cross in their country of their choosing. However, once they made that cross, they would no longer be able to return, hence the name Bridge of No Return. The Bridge of No Return lies on the southern boundary of the Joint Security Area. All the blue buildings belong to the United Nations Command, or the UNC, while the red buildings belong to North Korea, or the KPA. Prior to 1976, this area was known as a neutral location, and guard forces were able to move about freely. North Korea took full advantage of this by building 4 communist guard towers on the southern boundary road inside the Joint Security Area, while the UNC built none in the north. Note the location of Checkpoint 4 and how it is surrounded on 3 sides by communist guard towers, as well as isolated from the rest of the Joint Security Area. Checkpoint 3 had limited visibility due to an extremely large yellow poplar tree that grew in the area. So on August 18, 1976, the United Nations Command Security Battalion dispatched a 5-man civilian work detail, as well as a 12-man security force, to perform a routine tree trimming operation. When they arrived there, they were met by 28 North Korean guards. Everything did go as scheduled until 15 minutes later, the North Koreans did attack. The ensuing fight would last approximately 4 minutes, in which Company Commander Captain Arthur Boniface and First Platoon Leader First Lieutenant Mark Barrett lost their lives. I will show you in this picture how outnumbered they were that day. It's really hard to see. There's one JSA soldier fighting off 7 KPA soldiers. And here is the helmet of Captain Arthur Boniface, who was brutally axed to death in front of his own vehicle. And here you can clearly see a KPA soldier wielding an axe at a JSA soldier, who was First Lieutenant Mark Barrett. Due to these unprovoked acts of violence, the decision was made that both guard forces should be separated. There were no further acts of violence due to this agreement until November 23, 1984, when a Soviet citizen on a North Korean-sponsored tour dashed across the MDL in an attempt to defect to the free world. He was quickly followed by 30 North Korean soldiers armed with pistols and rifles in an attempt to capture or kill him. Quick reaction force was quickly alerted and was able to halt and outflank the North Korean main body. There were approximately 30 North Korean soldiers inside the northern portion of the sunken garden. The ensuing firefight would last approximately 20 minutes. costing three KPA soldiers their lives and 5 wounded, and 1 UNC soldier his life, Corporal Zhang, and 1 wounded. The Soviet citizen was protected throughout the firefight and escorted back here to Camp Boniface, where he later went back to the United States and became a reporter in San Francisco. These are North Korean soldiers. The armbands that they're wearing, as well as the one I'm wearing, under the provisions of the armistice, state that we must wear these if we are armed inside the demilitarized zone. However, North Korea no longer does so. If they do come down on our tour today, I ask that you do not communicate with them verbally or non-verbally. We also provide humanitarian aid to the North, such as the repatriation of remains from the Korean War, as well as the delivery of food, which is the cattle that you see there, and Red Cross to the North. Just like you, we provide security for heads of states and dignitaries, such as the former President of the United States, George W. Bush, the former President of the Republic of Korea, Lee Myung-pak, Prime Minister of New Zealand, John Key, former Secretary of State